Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today's topic is on valuation of long-term securities. That is second lecture, and today we will discuss zero coupon bond valuation, semi-annual compounding of coupon, preferred stock valuation. What is zero coupon bond? Zero coupon bond is the bond that pays no interest but sells a deep discount from its face value. It provides compensation to investor in the form of price appreciation. Basically, zero coupon bond do not provide any interest to the buyer, to the holder of the bond. The bond holder or the investor buy this bond on discount rate, let's suppose on 800, and then after few years, let's suppose 5 years, it is buy back by the company on 1000 rupees. So these 500 and the difference between this discounted amount and the buyback amount is basically investment return for the bond holder. So the bond do not provide any interest. There is only relationship between a maturity value and the amount paid by the investor right now. So how we will value these zero coupon bond, that we will discount its maturity values and required rate of return. So required rate of return is basically what, as we discussed in earlier chapter, that the investor is willing to invest on that rate at the same risk level that the zero coupon bond poses the risk. So market value is discounted on present value interest factor of single amount. Zero coupon bond examples. Bond Z has 1000 face value in 30 years life. The appropriate discount rate is 10%. What is the value of the zero coupon bond? Now we will discounted these were 1000 rupees at a rate of 10% for 30 years. So 1000 value is equal to 1000 multiplies by present value interest factor 10%, and for 30 years. In present value single amount table, we will see the figure in the column of 10% and in the row of 30 years. So 1000 multiplied by 0.057. So if it is 30 years life and your required rate of return is 10%, this bond will be viable if you buy it on 57 rupees based on your discounted required rate of return. Semi-annual compounding of the bond, that most bond pays interest twice a year, half of the year. That let's suppose there is a 10% coupon rate, and it is said it will be paid twice in a year. So 10% will be divided by 2. In the first half will be paid in 6 months, and the second half will be paid in the next in a second half. So adjustment needed to the formula that we will divide the required rate of return by 2. We will multiply the number of years also by 2, since we will receive the bondholder will receive the interest amount twice a year. So in this case, it is easy to cut the required rate of return by 2 and we double the number of years. Divide the interest received by the bondholder will also be divided by 2. Sorry. So we will divide this required rate of return by 2 and we will multiply number of years by 2 and we will divide this interest by 2. Then we will use the same formula as we used in earlier lecture in order to find the value or intrinsic value of the bond. Semi-annual compounding, let's suppose non-zero coupon bond adjusted for semi-annual compounding. The same formula as we see in earlier lecture, but we divided for the semi-annual compounding that we will divide interest by 2, interest by 2 and interest by 2 because we will receive now in 6 months the interest, so the interest is for half years. Similarly, this is required rate of return, it will also be divided by 2. We will half these required rate of return because first this return was for a year, now this is for 6 months. For 1 year first, but now it is half of the year, so we will divide our required rate of return. Now the number of period, if there are 30 periods, 30 years and our 30-year maturity, and we calculate for the 30-year, but when we received for 6 months, this 30-year will be divided by 2 and total period for this calculation will be 60 half years, means 6 months, 60 period of 6 months. So we will multiply it n by 2. Now we will reduce this formula to interest divided by 2 into 1 plus required rate of return by 2 raised to the power t and maturity value divided by 1 plus half required rate of return multiplied by 2 multiplied by number of years. In short form, when we use table, we will divide interest by 2, then present value interest factor in tables. Let's suppose we have 8%, 10% required rate of return, we will now it will be considered as 5%. If the maturity is 30 year, it will be now 60 year. Similarly, for the maturity value, we will see the value for present value interest factor single amount and required rate of return that is given in question will be divided by 2 and the maturity years will be multiplied by 2 as well. Now examples. Let's suppose you have a bond that has face value of $1,000 and it provides you semi-annual 8% coupon rate. This 8% semi-annual means that it is 8% a year, but you will receive it twice a year. For 15 year, maturity value is time to maturity is 15 years. The appropriate discount rate, your required rate of return is 10%. What is the value of coupon bond? First of all, we will calculate our interest. So the interest is, let's suppose 1,000 multiplied by 8% is equal to 80. So this $80 is not for 6 months, that is for 1 year. But since the coupon is paid semi-annually, so we will divide it by 2. When we will divide it by 2, we will get $40. So this $40 is basically half of the interest. Now, since this $40 we will receive it every 6 months and for 30 periods. So we will consider it as an annuity. We will use annuity table, present value interest factor for annuity. Since this required rate of return is 10%, we will divide this 10% by 2. We will get this divided by 2, we will get this 5%. Where is this 30 comes from? We have 15 years of maturity. Since we will receive this $40 every 6 months, now we will have multiplied this 15 years with by 2. This 1000 face value, we will receive this 1000 value after 15 years. But if we consider it as a 6 months period, we will receive it in a 30th period. So we will again discounted it as a we'll discount it as a single amount, present value interest factor for the single amount. Now $40 multiplied by present value interest factor for annuity, we will get this amount from the table of the annuity of present value. 1000, we will get this amount for the single amount, or 5% for 30th periods. So multiplication, we will get $6.41 and $231. Total value of the bond is $845. And this is the intrinsic value that we have calculated based on certain factors. Certain factor is discounted rate and number of years. So the bond is sale and purchase at discounted price in the open market, and it is face value of $1000. Preferred stock. What is preferred stock? Preferred stock is a stock is a type of stock that promises usually fixed dividend, but at the discretion of the board of directors. So why it is called preferred stock? Preferred stock is basically that the company will give preference to those investors who hold preferred stock or preferred shareholders in 2 things. One is claim on assets, the company will give prefer to the preferred shareholder on claim on assets, and second is preference and dividend. What it means that claim on asset, if the company becomes bankrupt and become liquidated, now if the asset have been sold by the liquidator, first they will settle the claim of preferred shareholder, and then common shareholder will comes to the residual amount of the company, but the preferred stockholder will be given a preference in case of liquidation to settle their claim first, just prior to the common shareholders. And these preferred shareholders will be preferred in declaring the dividend. So dividend will be given first to the preferred stockholder and then to the common stockholder. Preferred stock is preference over a common stock in payment of dividend, and payment of dividend, this is first, and claim an asset, this is second. Why it is called preferred stock? But these preferred stock have no voting right. It doesn't cast any vote on annual general meeting, no voting right. It doesn't appoint any director on the board. Preferred stock valuation, same as it was used in bond, but in bond we use here interest. We will use this word dividend of preferred shareholder, dividend of preferred shareholder for second year, dividend for preferred shareholder for an infinite year. This is a type of preferred stock that have no redeemable values, means the company will not redeem, will not buy back this preferred stock. It will be with the holder till infinity. Maybe the holder sell or purchase it in a secondary market. So we will discount its first dividend with the required rate of return on preferred shareholder. We will discount the second year dividend with the required rate of return for this preferred shareholder risk level. We will discount this value till infinity. Now, if we squeeze this formula, it will be seen so: t is equal to 1, we will get this amount; t is equal to 2, we will get this amount; t is equal to 3, we will get this amount; t is equal to till infinity. But since it is a perpetuity, so for the perpetuity, the formula is that any cash flow divided by required rate of return will give you the present value. So the intrinsic value of those preferred stock who provide perpetual dividend forever will be calculated as dividend, therefore first year dividend divided by required rate of return. Now examples, let's suppose, just assume that you have 8%. 8% means that this preferred stock having par value of 100 will give you 8% dividend, issuing outstanding, value issuing outstanding. The appropriate discount rate for, let's suppose, for this risk class in which this preferred value fall, discount rate is 10%. What is the value of the preferred stock? Now first we will calculate dividend. Dividend on the preferred share is 100 multiplied by 8%, that is $8. Now required rate of return is 10%. So the value is, using the formula of perpetuity, dividend divided by KP, $8 divided by 10%, that is 80. So right now this share have intrinsic value. What should be the value of this preferred share is $80. It have a par value of 100, of course, but it will be sale or purchase at a discounted rate. This is because that 100 par value will give you 8%, while if you invest this $100 somewhere else, it will give you a 10%. So people will not invest in this 8% asset. They will invest it in a open market where they can get 10% interest on their $100. So they will not prefer to buy this stock stock, so its value will be reduced and discounted. Thank you. This is all about today lecture.